Percy Jackson, the book series that probably defined my childhood, now that the show has concluded, has finally received an accurate and faithful live-action adaptation, right? Yes and no. Even with the original author behind the project helping with writing and the direction of the story, and even with stellar casting with actors that embody the characters found in the books, Percy Jackson and the Olympians is not quite the adaptation we were looking for. It still struggles to make beneficial changes that improve the story and struggles to stick with the original story, but does deliver a strong enough first season to set up some promising future seasons, which hopefully means we get 5 seasons out of this bad boy. Hi guys, my name's Jackson George. If you haven't seen Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the whole first season, I'd go ahead, click away, watch the series, and then come back. We're going over a ton of spoilers here, so here's your spoiler warning. But if you're someone who's watched the entire series, or even read the book, or just someone who doesn't care about spoilers, doesn't give a crap about that, let's go ahead and dive into this thing. The plot of season 1 pretty much goes like this. Percy Jackson thinks he's just a troubled 12-year-old with ADHD and dyslexia. But boy, is he in for a treat. Everything changes during a field trip at the Met where a fury attacks him. Percy is then plunged into a world full of gods and monsters. To make matters even worse, Zeus's master bolt has been stolen, which is a big uh-oh. Zeus is rightfully mad about this, but unrightfully accuses Percy of being the thief. The Master of the Sky has set a deadline for the return of his favorite weapon to kill people with. The summer solstice, or a civil war between the gods, will begin. Percy and his newfound friends will have to travel across the country to find the Master Bolt. Along the way, fighting powerful monsters, crossing paths with gods, and even uncovering the identity of the Lightning Thief. Oh yeah, by the way, they only have a week to do so. That's the plot of season 1. I just want to say, before I get into any criticisms or any of my opinions, I just want to say thank you to Rick and to the team that made this show. Thank you. It might not be what I wanted it to be. It might not be what I hoped it would be, but it still brought me back into this world that I'd fallen in love with as a child, as a 9, 10-year-old. These books mean so much to me. And because I started reading The Lightning Thief along with the show, that led to the spiraling down the entire series. And now I've read the whole Percy Jackson series and The Heroes of the Olympians and Trials of Apollo. And I've just gone down this rabbit hole of books again, which might not be the best for my productivity, but has been really fun to look back on stories that meant so much to me as a kid, and to connect with my own friends who I didn't realize read these as children. More than anything that you did with the show, thank you for making this, and for opening the doorway for me to think about reading these again, which I did, and have just had an absolute blast doing. Even as a 20-year-old, I'm still so fond of these books, and they still hold up to this day, and I still find super entertaining, super fun to read. I think the problem that stands out most to me as someone who has read the books, that loves them so much, the thing that leaps off the screen to me are the changes made and the amount of changes made. Now, don't get me wrong. I realize that this is an adaptation and that this is a TV show and not a book. They're going to make changes. It makes sense. I expected that coming in. I wasn't expecting a shot-for-shot adaptation or a line-for-line adaptation in the show. That's not what I was expecting. But at the same time, man, after hearing about how much they hated the movies, I expected this to be way more faithful to the source material. Not straying where they didn't need to, not changing things that didn't need changing or correcting, but making corrections where they needed to be and making changes to help it run smoother as a show. But instead is what we got, especially I felt like in episodes 3 through 7, we got a completely different story and completely different set of events than what happened in the book. I truly felt that episodes 1, 2, and 8 were kind of that adaptation that I was expecting. You know, you made a couple changes that you needed to help it flow together better. Like Percy landing on Montauk instead of Santa Monica after the underworld, no plane scene, Sally explaining the Greek gods and mythology in the first episode instead of Chiron and Annabeth spread throughout his tour at Camp Half-Blood. those changes made sense. And although I wasn't a fan of the absence of some of them or how they changed those, it was necessary for the time that they were given. They were given 40 minutes, and in these episodes, it truly felt like we have this 40 minutes. We have to get this, and this in there. If we can change certain things or remove certain things to help us flow between these events smoother, better, to reach that 40-minute mark, we're going to do that. And it felt like they were able to do that and make those changes and still be able to maintain a respect to the source material and be able to show the love that they had for this story, for this universe. But then it's so weird. In between all that, episodes 3 through 7, in the in-between, it feels completely different. It felt like they had almost too much time to work with and also made so many changes that didn't need to be made. I think about the Medusa scene and them knowing Medusa is Medusa the second they meet her. Actually, even before they meet her, when they step onto her property. And it's changes like this that I feel like removed from the story. In the book, I felt like them not knowing it was Medusa till like the last second really added a sense of mystery around the scene, really added a little bit of tension, and also allowed Percy and Annabeth to be kids, to make mistakes that kids would make. The reason Annabeth's alarms don't go off in the book till a lot later in that scene is because she's hungry. She's blinded by the smell of cheeseburgers and milkshakes and all this stuff, and Percy joins along right with her. We as the readers only know something's about to go wrong because Grover is the one who says, guys, we shouldn't be here. We shouldn't go eat the food. When the guy that eats anything all the time is like, guys, we shouldn't go chasing after the food, that's when you know something's up. And so I felt like the retraction of that, the mystery, those certain elements in the story really take away from the characters as a whole, from their growth, and also from the tension of the scene itself. And there's just so many changes like that. I think of Krusty in episode 7. I mean, in the book, Krusty's got Annabeth and Grover in the beds. Like, they're about to die, and it's up to Percy to figure out a way to outsmart Krusty and free his friends. That's a much better sequence than what we got in the show. And in fact, like, just remove that part. Don't even tease us with the idea of Krusty if you're not going to portray it accurately. And if you're not going to do it in that fun Percy Jackson type way. That scene did not feel like it belonged in a Percy Jackson book. And you know, there's tons of changes that I didn't like or I felt like didn't improve the story. Like how they found the Master Bolt, putting Echidna on the train way earlier, how they changed Waterland almost completely. I understand that they explained that it would have been a VFX nightmare, and so I get that, but I don't think what they substituted with was very good. Wasn't a fan of how they pretty much completely removed the kindly express exchange between Percy and Annabeth, the real heartfelt moments that is referenced in the Heroes of Olympus series. Like, that was an important scene. I wasn't a fan of the Fates being in episode 5. What? Look, I'm not upset by the fact that they made changes, but the changes, majority of the time, do not benefit the show and actually end up hurting it and taking the older readers away from the story, being like, that's not how that was supposed to go, and that's not better than how it went. And also because a lot of the mystery is removed by revealing all these different villains and monsters so early, the mystery is taken away for the newcomers as well, people who are just getting into Percy Jackson from the show. And I just want to say, not all the changes were bad. I liked a lot of the changes. The taxi scene in episode 6 with Percy driving Hermes' cab, I thought that was a great scene to include. It felt like it fit within the story, and it fit the characters as well. I enjoyed that. Grover being collateral with Ares, although I missed him in the Tunnel of Love sequence since they had to change that anyway, I thought this was a good change. Percy sacrificing himself at the arch, not just happening to be up there waiting on an elevator. I thought that was a good change, but I liked that he had to sacrifice himself for his friends. The meeting with Ares on the side of the road instead of just at the diner. I thought that was really funny, and again, it fit the characters, it fit the vibe of Percy Jackson. But you see what I mean? It's little changes. It's not the big changes where we're altering the course of the events, where we're changing the story itself. It's little things. It's things that fit the world that weren't included within the original book, and that actually improve on the story. I won't talk about all the changes made from the book. That's a video for another time. But one change I will mention before we move on is really what I think is the most destructive and just overall bad move that the show makes. I think you all know what I mean, and that's the end of episode 6, where it is revealed that Percy misses the deadline. What? What do you mean he missed the deadline? I get that this is probably an attempt to create some sort of shock factor for readers of the book. But when you think about it in the broad part of the story, it makes no sense. Rick actually had to defend this over on Threads, and he said it really doesn't make a difference. Yes, it does. It makes a difference, maybe not in the events of the book, but it makes a difference in how we view the story. The whole story is based on the stakes that Percy has to make this deadline or war will start. That's the stakes. The added bonus is, will he get his mom back or not? Will he die in the process? Those are extra. Those aren't the source. The big thing is, can he make this deadline? Can he get the Master Bolt back on time and prevent war? He doesn't do that. And guess what? There's no consequence for that as well. So it's like, is there any stakes in the show? Overall, it just takes away from the overarching story. And it's just such a weird change because it did not have to happen. There is no reason for this to happen. It doesn't make the show speed up. It doesn't improve on character arcs or development. I read Rick's reasoning. I get it. He wanted to make the casino have a greater impact on the story, feel like they truly lost a ton of time. That was more consequential than it was in the book. But here's the thing. It was already really consequential in the book. You still felt that, the sense of dread that they had. And it leads to important things in the future, like Percy boarding the plane. Like, he has to risk his life to get back to the throne room on time. And we're just taking all that away. It's such a shame. You're just like, what? Why? Why did we do that? It's so frustrating. It saps the stakes away from the show. It changes how we as the viewer view the show. There's no stakes. Why do we care? And that's a huge change that they made, but it honestly points to the bigger problem with the changes in the book. They take away, they don't add, they don't improve. I think looking back, when I watch this again for the third time maybe, or in preparation for a hopeful season 2, you're going to look at this and go, man, they had the opportunities to be faithful to the book. That budget wasn't limiting, that time wasn't limiting, but it was their own choices to make these changes, and they did not help. They didn't improve. They weren't the right choices. And overall, you're left with a product, with a result that ultimately, I feel, if not right now, it will later, leave fans disappointed. Now, I say all that, but I will say this. The changes are not the only thing wrong with this show. And again, I think this goes back to the adapting. The show goes by way too fast, especially in key moments. Goes too quickly. Fight with Ares, done incredibly well. Such a good fight. This is kind of what I imagined as a kid, but the struggle between Ares was not there. Ares was not winning long enough, in my opinion. And so it was cut short. It was like everything led to this moment, and then it was cut short. Why are we doing that? Fight with the Chimera and Echidna. Way too quick. I realized it was quick in the books. I absolutely agree. Still way too quick. The bus scene with the Furies. Way too quick. Third Fury doesn't even show up. They don't even blow up the bus. One Fury comes in, Annabeth throws a knife at her, turns to dust, and then they run off. Way too quick. And again, there's many other examples where the pacing is just way too fast. And that leads not only to the big, fun battle sequences being cut short, but also the emotional moments. As I said earlier, the Kindly Wilderness Express bus scene between Annabeth and Percy is almost completely non-existent. They don't go into her time with her dad and why she doesn't want to go back. They go into it just a little bit on the train on the way to St. Louis, but not enough to give us a really full picture or really care. or understand why Annabeth's the way she is, why she ran away. We're also cut short time with Grover to understand why he wants to pursue Pan. All we know in the show is that satyrs want to find Pan. Nature's going downhill. They need to find Pan. Pan's missing. And we're left to assume that that's what Grover wants, but we don't get to understand his deep passion and desire to find Pan, to be the one to finally find Pan like we do in the book. The tone of this show is so serious, and I have no idea why. These characters are so stoic. It's almost like I'm watching completely different characters. There are a lot of moments within the show, I'll give them credit, where they act like Percy, Annabeth, and Grover. I felt like I was watching these pages come to life on screen. They're there, but they're rare. I feel like that's a missed opportunity. Annabeth is so stoic. Percy is so stoic. Only Grover, do I feel, is ever that kind of in between. He's a good mix of what was found in the book. I felt like they did Grover well. Like, Percy is not quite right. Casting, perfect. I don't think I could see anyone else besides Walker playing Percy in the future. I don't think that's possible. Walker is fantastic as Percy. What they give him is not. It's not fantastic. And it's a really shame. It's a real shame. Percy is what makes or breaks this series. It truly does. And when they nail Percy is when the show is at its best. And when they don't, it's kind of like, what are we watching? And because the tone of the show is so serious, the kids don't feel like kids. Set up for future seasons, I thought it was decent. The dreams that Percy has with Kronos, I thought weren't done too well. Kronos is not intimidating enough. While reading the later books in the series, like, I was terrified when Percy would have to face against Kronos. I had no idea how Percy would come out on top. And obviously he's not facing Kronos in this series. That would be weird. It'd be weird to fight Kronos so early in the series, like in the first or second movie. I'm looking at you, movies. What was that decision? Come on. But there's no sense of danger. You don't really get a threat from Kronos, just kind of some mystery. And, that's fine. And I'm glad they put the dreams within the show. Like, that was good. That was really good. One last thing, because it's all Twitter seemed to talk about, the Percy-Annabeth relationship in the show. I thought it was done pretty well. But, like, the amount of it and just the constant foreshadowing for future books, it's just like, this is a slow burn. This happens over a course of time, and it feels earned at the end. Here, though, it's like plastered in like neon lights that this is going to happen. And not gonna lie, it feels weird for that to happen in the first book, especially considering that they are 12 years old. These are 12-year-olds. Why are we talking about them being in a relationship? I know I've had a ton of criticism about this show. I'm not gonna lie, through my first viewing, it was really hard not to criticize a lot of it. But I will say this, I enjoyed a lot of it as well. As I said in my first review, how they brought Camp Half-Blood to life, like right out of my mind, right off the pages, incredible. The way that they built this world and they showed it was awesome. I'd say the only thing I was not a fan of that they interpreted was the Lotus Casino. Didn't feel like it was enough of this magical land that Percy, Annabeth, and Grover would get lost in. And even things I didn't think would look like they did in the show were still really cool. Like the Underworld. Underworld was so cool. I love the sand and the dark outer reaches and the wall where Cerberus is, and Hades' palace was really cool, being upside down. And I liked actually seeing the pit of Tartarus. That was really cool. And they nail the vibes. Even though the characters might not act like they do in the book, even though the events might not replicate the book, the world and how it looks, like it feels like you're in a Percy Jackson book. They did a fantastic job on that. And I really hope we get a season 2, because I can't wait to see how they portray the Sea of Monsters and the Princess Andromeda and all this stuff. I'm really excited about it. Man, I can't imagine what Last Olympian's going to look like, what the Labyrinth looks like. Oh my goodness. And I thought casting was absolutely phenomenal. Again, the only problem I had was the writing. and the dialogue and the direction they went with certain characters, not the actors and actresses themselves. Was I disappointed with the show? Yes. Were there a lot of missed opportunities and a lot of potential that wasn't necessarily realized? Yes, absolutely. But even though I felt like they missed on a ton of different opportunities, there's a lot of promise in the first season, a lot of glimpses into greatness that could happen in season 2, in season 3, in season 4, in season 5. I hope we get to season 5. And I truly believe that in the next season, should they get it, I'm just waiting for it to be greenlit. It should happen. I'm excited to see what changes they make and how they adapt it better. And I truly do believe that they will make better changes. I truly believe that they will improve on the story. I think this may be an Office situation. They didn't stick the landing in the first season. It might take them a little while to find out how to truly adapt this well. But I think once they nail it, man, people are going to really love this show. But as of right now, man, that wasn't the best first outing. And you know what? That's okay. You're going to get them next time. I truly believe that. I'm not going to lie. I'm excited for what the future holds for Percy Jackson and the Olympians. It ended on a good note, in my opinion. And I think the next installment can be even greater than this one. But we'll have to see. But that's about it for me about Percy Jackson. I know I've ranted for so long. Oh my goodness. But let me know down in the comment section below what you guys thought about Percy Jackson Season 1. Good, bad, favorite moments, all that stuff down in the comment section below. And also comment below Masterbolt if you've made it this far. Let me know. As always, guys, I appreciate you all so much for stopping by, for watching the video. Sorry if the background and the lighting has changed throughout. The clouds have been so weird today and decided to be really sunny at the beginning and then super dark and to the point of rain later. So I'm sorry if it looks weird. And as always, I love you guys. And until next time, peace out, bro skillets.